What is up, Unleashed CEO fam? Happy Monday, everybody, as usual. What's up, Mark Hardaway? In the house. What's up, Facebook fam? Welcome to those of you guys joining us on replay. Super excited to chat with you guys today. This is gonna be fun. All right. So, I want to just bring to everybody's awareness that, these calls on Monday, as we get started, I just always like to remind us that this is such a great way as CEOs to start our week, is basically examining the mindset and the habits that allow us to lead as the CEO healthy and highly scalable companies, right? And not doing this, it really allows us to oftentimes get sucked into the weeds, get sucked into kind of the day-to-day things that we're doing, maybe even get sucked into working in the business, but not always taking enough time to reflect on the intangibles that drive growth, and namely our mindset and our habits. And so I'm super excited, guys, to dig into that today. And this is kind of a continuation and a deepening of what we discussed last week, which had pretty much everything to do with thinking time, right? We talked about TOTB, right? How sometimes we talk so much about working on the business that we can actually neglect the step that comes before all great WOTB, which is thinking on the business, right? There's a great book. I can't remember exactly who wrote it or who used this analogy, but essentially they talk about this idea of like how organizations sometimes put their ladder against the wrong building and they end up climbing really fast in the wrong direction, right? They're actually scaling up the wrong building. And I think in a similar way, sometimes we can, even as owners and CEOs, we can spend so much time and effort on what's right in front of us, right? And because we're not self-aware, we can completely miss the things that are actually most urgent, the things that we actually need to work on and solve for the greater good of our business. And today I want to bring one of those things to you guys. And this comes out of some of our own experience, which I want to talk about the ongoing process of weaponizing your vision, the ongoing process of weaponizing your vision. Now, here's what I want to talk about this a little bit today, and I'll start with my kind of story in recent days, okay? It's so interesting to me that when we come in to work with clients' businesses, typically our clients, their companies are older than our existing company is. Now, again, I've been doing consulting for many years before Unleashed CEO, and I've also obviously been a part of some other really great, fast scaling companies, but Unleashed CEO is still a relatively young company. We're just under the 2-year mark. And it's so interesting to me because when we come in to help clients, most of the time, they have this entire data set that we're able to pull from to help them weaponize their vision and their positioning. We're able to look back typically over multiple years and learn from that experience to actually focus and streamline what they're doing now. And it's so interesting because even though we help clients with that so much, we are actually going through that same process ourselves as we near the 2-year mark, where we're going, again, how do we get more weaponized? How do we communicate clearer? How do we make our marketing messaging more sharp? How do we cause it to cut through the noise of the market? How do we attract even more specifically our perfect patron? And how do we actually align our team and our processes even more efficiently in the direction of a clearer and clearer vision? So I hope this is connecting with some of you guys, because I just want to take you guys today into my thought process of how I've been thinking about weaponizing our vision. And the first thing that I want to point out is just this idea that it might seem basic to some of you guys who read the headline. But idea number one today, guys, is that weaponizing your vision is an ongoing process. And you just need to accept this, okay? As a visionary, as a leader, most of the time, you are not going to nail it perfectly and get it right the first time. In fact, this is why with clients, we oftentimes say it just needs to be 80% right or better, okay? Because we know the other 20% is going to It's going to play a big role in your success long term. You just may not have the data points and the clarity right this very second to get that extra 20% clarity. And it's actually okay that we delegate that 20% of clarity to the future, so long as we don't forget about it. So long as we actually, as CEOs, are taking time to take what we're learning, take what we're seeing, and go back and refine and optimize and streamline and clarify. Okay. So the first thing, guys, is that it is an ongoing process. The first principle I want to just remind everyone of here is, if as a CEO, you're feeling some rumblings, okay, in your belly, you're kind of going, man, this doesn't seem quite right. And this doesn't seem aligned. And maybe we need to change something here. And maybe we're not quite positioning this exactly the way we should. My friend, that's good. Okay. Now you have to think through timeline of implementation. As the visionary, you can't always be slinging new ideas all the time. That also has a destructive effect. But it is good that you treat your vision and your strategy as a living thing, because it is. Okay. It is an ongoing process of optimization. You don't just nail it the first time. You have to continue to iterate it. And some of you guys know this, but one of my favorite sayings comes from Pixar. They have an incredible culture where, oftentimes they will work on a movie for 5 to 7 years, which is often double the industry standard. Okay. And the reason, if you were to ask someone from Pixar why they do it that way, is because they would answer this. It's a part of their culture. They say story is refinement. Story is refinement. And that's so true, guys. I found, even with, I would maybe say that strategy is refinement. Vision is refinement. Okay. And so we've got to take this, mindset, right, into how we calibrate our vision, knowing that we shouldn't just be overhauling everything and throwing everything out the window every other month, but we should be regularly going back and revisiting our vision, revisiting our positioning, revisiting our strategy, revisiting our messaging, because you have to do that, right? You have to do that, especially as you reach new levels of scale. Okay, so number one is that it's an ongoing process. Number two is that it's not a linear process. Okay, it's not a linear process. What do I mean by this? Okay, because ideally, when we bring clients through our process, it's fairly linear. There is a collaborative approach, but it is fairly linear, right? So we're going to work on this, then we're going to work on this, and then we're going to work on this. And linear processes have incredible value. Okay, they have incredible value. I'm a huge fan of them. However, what you have to recognize is that as a CEO, when you're on step 4 of the process, you may actually create a breakthrough that trickles back to step 1. Okay. And then you may have something that, happens in step 1 that causes you to have to look at and examine step 3 again. Right. It's not a linear process, guys. Getting clarity, refining your vision, refining your messaging, your positioning is not purely linear. And this is where, as a CEO, you have to sort of be okay. It's your team's job many times to create certainty and, consistency. And if you're playing a team role, you need to create that within those departments. But as the visionary and the CEO and the leader, you have to be okay living in the chaos a little bit, living in the unknown and the uncertainty. When you're with your team, you should have tons of certainty. You should communicate with clarity. You shouldn't roll out things and all of the questions spinning in your head, because your team doesn't need to know all that right away. Okay. But for you as the visionary, it's actually okay that you have unsolved questions. In fact, I would go so far as to say that if you do not have unresolved questions in your head right now, you have probably not gone deep enough into the future. You have not gone deep enough on your strategy, and you have not gone far enough into the future and the vision of your company. I can tell you guys right now, I have at least 3 to 5 major questions that I do not have answers to that will massively affect our company over the next 3 to 5 years. Massively. Okay. And it's good that I don't know the answers to those. Why? Because if I can learn to ask the right questions, my brain, my subconscious will go to work over time, over the next weeks and months and years, to sort of subconsciously pick up the data points that I'm going to need to answer those questions in time for them to need to have answers. Okay. I don't need to have answers today, but I need to be asking the right questions. I need to be asking the right questions. I'm going to say that again. I may not have all the answers today. There may not be a linear 1, 2, 3 step process to get all the answers, but I better be asking the right questions as it pertains to our future and our vision. Hopefully this is making sense for anybody who's listening. So, right, 1, it's an ongoing process. 2 is it's not a linear process. And number 3, guys, tying back into asking the right questions. Number 3 is just this, that the gap between where you are now and where you need to be in the future is typically going to come down to clarity. Okay. It's not going to come down to just muscling it and trying to figuring out. Typically, if you are experiencing a gap, right, between where you are today and where you are tomorrow, right, the actual problem is often clarity. The actual problem is often clarity. It's not just going to be purely like getting it done and hustling and kind of making things happen. When you encounter that resistance, it should push you not just into a state of frantically trying things. It should push you into a state of thinking, right? And so I wanted to just bring you guys into my thought process a little bit today and show you guys kind of how I took some time this weekend to revisit, specifically for us. About a week ago, I did a deep dive on our company's vision 3 to 5 years from now and what would need to change in our business model between here and there in alignment with kind of our 10-year target. And the questions I started asking were amazing questions. They were questions I did not have the answer to, but they were the right questions. Since then, in only about a week and a half's time, I've started to get a ton of clarity about the answers to those questions. But then it started to actually shift how I approach our marketing messaging and our positioning. Remember, I said it's not linear, right? So I was over here thinking 3 to 5 years out in the future. And because I got some clarity on where we need to be 3 to 5 years out in the future, it actually pointed me to some things we're doing in our positioning and messaging right now that actually are going to have to evolve to get us there. You guys see where I'm kind of coming from here? And so I wanted to just bring you guys into a couple of the questions I'm asking and answering again. I'm revisiting again for our company as I consider the future and as I kind of work to weaponize our vision a little bit more. So question number 1, and I'll just post these in the chat so you guys can see them. Question number 1. Question number 1 is, what is our superpower? Really? This is such a good question, right? Because the thing is, guys, is that as you grow your company, you're actually going to become good at a lot of different things. And that's actually dangerous sometimes because the enemy of great is good. The enemy of great is not bad. The enemy of great is good. Okay. And as a company, you have the ability a lot of times to pick up all of these different things that you're sort of good at. And what happens is you grow, and basically growth creates complexity, and then complexity kills growth. It's some of my new favorite phrases, right? And I've noticed some of this happening even a little bit within our company where, over time there was like scope creep with clients. We started doing things with clients and for clients that weren't really within our company's superpower, unique ability. And there were inefficiencies that were starting to come into the process, right? Even with our marketing messaging, we started putting some things out to market that were attracting people, right, who didn't most celebrate and need our superpower, right? And let me just, I guess, couple this with the next question I'm asking, right? Because I'm asking these in sequence. So once I've clarified what is our superpower, really, what is truly our superpower? Not just all the different things we do good, but what are we truly great at? What's the thing that we do better than 95% of all of our competitors that differentiates us and separates us from everyone else? Okay. Getting really clear about what that is. And then because you have clarity on the answer to that question, asking this one, because it's so good. Who most celebrates and needs the superpower? Who most celebrates and needs this superpower? It's been astounding to me as I've started to poll our company. I've started to talk to our coaches. I've actually gone and had, in depth, even this morning, I had some in-depth conversations with our sales team to back up some of my assumptions about the answers to this question. And it's been astonishing to me that my I don't say this boastfully, but the clarity I got when I asked this question has been 100% confirmed by talking to our operations team and talking to our sales team. 100% confirmed, where I've just started to realize like, oh my gosh, there is actually a tighter, more niched group of people, our perfect patron, than even what we're currently targeting and speaking to right now, who absolutely celebrate and need our superpower even more than the current, broader net that we're casting right now. Okay. Guys, this is so important because if you don't answer this question at new levels of scale, you're going to start to notice inefficiency and complexity. Okay. Actually, the level of clarity we had in the last season allowed us to get from there to here. But to get from here to the next place of growth, we have to simplify. We have to simplify. We have to simplify. Again, growth creates complexity and complexity kills growth. So the key for a growth-minded CEO is at every new stage of growth, we have to ruthlessly identify and eliminate complexity and create simplicity, right? Ruthlessly eliminate complexity and create simplicity, okay? And that is what I am on the prowl for right now as I look to the next season of growth for our company. Eliminating complexity wherever possible, okay? The next question, guys, that I like to answer and ask, when I'm thinking about, who most celebrates and needs our superpower is what client type has the highest LTV. We actually started running the numbers on this, right? We actually started running some of the numbers and asking the question, who has the highest LTV? Who has the highest profitability? Okay. What group of people tend to stay with us the longest, pay us the most, be the most grateful, and ultimately, we actually spend the least to acquire that kind of customer, right? And we dug into this. And again, it was so amazing how we started to get even more clarity about how we can tighten our targeting, tighten our messaging, tighten our vision, even tighten some of our product lines to not just be general, but to really speak to and overcome the objections of a more specific group of people and be the go-to solution for them. So where they don't just go like, oh, this is a general solution, which our solutions have never been general, but oh, this is a general solution and there's lots of other competitors to shop, to going, no, there is no one who's doing what they do for the specific painful problem I have, for the specific type of person I am, to get the specific outcome, the promised land that I want. Okay, no one. And that is how you create incredibly tight offers and products. That's how you create extremely aligned teams and systems. It's how you create extremely tight and cutting edge marketing messaging. And it's how you separate yourself from the competition and everybody else who's trying to win the same business that you are. Okay. And then lastly, guys, that, one of the questions is like, who do we most resonate with and are passionate about serving? Who do we most resonate with and are passionate about serving? Guys, I wrote the 5 Ps of positioning, right? I've used that document and I've used that framework in previous businesses I've worked with in my consulting practice. I've used it for years now within our company, and I'm still going back and asking these questions again with new data points to consider, with more metrics and actual numbers to back our assumptions, and with more qualitative feedback from our team, our sales advisors, all of that. And so, guys, I guess I just say all this today to hopefully get the point across that as a CEO, my friend, you have to treat the process of weaponizing your vision and your positioning as an ongoing process. And here's when you need to go back and refine. When you need to go back and refine when you start to hit a ceiling, when things start to feel complex, things start to feel uncertain, things start to feel like you're having to expend more effort to create the same results, okay? When you feel these things as a CEO and visionary, you know that you've probably allowed complexity to come in and it's time to simplify. And you also know that you need to actually sharpen the axe to be more deadly for the next season in order to cut through new types of barriers, new scaling barriers that you haven't cut through before. So hopefully this is helpful to some of you guys, just bringing you into how I'm thinking about this. And I hope that you guys find kind of my thought and approach helpful, and would love to hear some feedback from the community based on that. So guys, let me ask you this question. I want you guys to think about this for a second, and then we'll come on live and we'll have a short discussion about this. But I want to ask you guys this question. What is one area of your vision or your positioning right now that you are not clear about? What is one area about your vision or your positioning that you are not clear about currently? And then once you identify that area, I would challenge you to ask the second question, which is, what is the right question to be asking to get that clarity? What is the right question to ask to get that clarity? Now, you may not get the clarity right away, but the first step is to ask the right question. Okay? I'm going to say that one more time. Write this down. What's one area of our vision or positioning that I do not have clarity on right now, that is unclear right now? And then number two, what is the right question to ask to get that clarity? All right, guys. So hopefully that is helpful. I would love to hear some feedback from the team, from the crew here. Let's see. I'm just coming up to Facebook here. All right. So what questions do we have, everybody? I would love to know if you guys wrote that question down. What is one area you do not have clarity on in regards to your vision or positioning? I'm going to go ahead and bring the people who are on Zoom on live. If anybody from Facebook would like to jump on live to join us, please do. We'd love to have you here. And we'll just have a great discussion here, guys. So I'm going to bring on Rick and Mark. Rick and Mark, what's up, guys? What is up, fellas?
What's happening?
Morning. Happy Monday.
Morning. Happy Monday.
Bro, I'm jealous of your basketball hoop back there. I've been wanting a basketball hoop at my house so bad, but my driveway doesn't support it. I got to figure that out. Maybe got to get one paved in the backyard or something.
What do you mean it doesn't support it?
Oh, it's just at like an incline like this. It's like, it's pretty bad. It'd be hard to put a basketball hoop in there. Yeah, but we'll see. I've been thinking about that so much as the weather's been starting to get nice. Mark, what's up, man? You might be busy doing something, but just want to give you a shout out and say, hey. So Rick, anything come to mind? Anything come to mind for you when I asked that question? What's one area of your vision or positioning that you don't have total clarity on right now?
Oh yeah, I just think it's, for me, that next of things I'm doing. You know, I'm still having too much time with clients, doing too much work with them. And so, you know, and then the question really is, am I willing to take the risks and put in the training to new people, or maybe come up with a new system to make that work? And the answer is absolutely yes. Like, we've done all the SSA, you know, we're all in, it's going to launch, and it's time to start hiring. I can think of 3 positions right now I need to hire tomorrow. And I'm sitting on a pile of cash, and there's no reason not to just like go to the next level. Yeah.
So good, man. I think, so let me see if I can frame the area of unclarity, or maybe sometimes we perceive unclarity when actually it's just we just need courage. So that's always one of the tensions for me, is it's like, do I actually not know what I need to do, or do I just need to have the courage to do it? Right. And I'm veiling in some ways go ahead.
I think then, like, well, how do you do that, and how do you do it differently? So, you know, because I've hired people before, I've had a bigger team, but I did it wrong. I expected too much out of a single position. And so how do I redefine that position so they don't, what I've seen in your team is like, Corey sells stuff. And so I need a person who can do a job, but the seller is probably a different person, right? It's not the same person who's assessing my clients. And I've tried, it just is too much to learn. Like that's just selling what we do. Like we're selling the equivalent of automobiles, and then this whole other specialty takes a graduate degree and then an additional 2 years to learn. Like I'm expecting too much out of a single position because I can do it.
Yep.
But I've been doing it for more than a decade, so I got to split up these positions. And then how do I define that? And then how do I think I have the salesperson already put in place. I just got a trainer. Yeah. So it's just the uncertainty is like, well, okay, if you think you know what to do, then how do you pull this off and how do you do it kind of thing, right? And then, and then it reminds me when I was at Stanford, I had a $120,000 grant to leave and go into private practice, but that was still scary because I had my dream job, Stanford, that was paying me peanuts to work in the area, but it was Stanford, it's like time to go. Even though my wife was 6 months pregnant, quit your job. You just got to take some risks.
You do have to take some risks, but the good news is you don't have to just take risks the same way you made them before, right? You can take very educated, very calculated risks where you've done as much as possible to mitigate your downside, right? And I think that's a little bit the shift from entrepreneurial mindset of just like, oh, just take risks, to like CEO mindset where it's like, I'm not ignoring the risks. I've truly evaluated the risks. I've determined that it's still the right move despite the risks. So then it's like, how do I put a plan in place to mitigate those risks as much as possible? And again, that's where it comes back to thinking time. By the way, guys, and I've just been devouring it lately. I actually have read little bits of it before, but The Road Less Stupid by Keith Cunningham.
That sounds awesome.
By Keith Cunningham is one of the best books I have ever read. The Road Less Stupid, man. It's the best book I've ever read about thinking as like a CEO. And this coming from a guy who literally is like a billionaire, just owns like, I don't even know how many companies, sits on the board for many of these companies. Like it just absolutely brilliant. But the whole book is about how he could have avoided losing $150 million if he would have actually done the practice he preaches now, which is thinking time, like actually having thinking time. And wow. It's phenomenal. The book is phenomenal. I so recommend it. But one of the things he talks about that I think is like so helpful is he talks about the 4 hats in every business and how you have, and I'm going to forget one of them, but there's the artist, the operator, the owner, and the board member. That's what it is, right? So artist, operator, owner, and board member. And he talks about how like it's okay to put all those different hats on, but he talks a lot in the book about what the owner hat actually looks like how to actually think like an owner, right? Not just the artist or the operator. And it's so clarifying, but the biggest takeaway for me has been being more intentional in my thinking time to put those different hats on intentionally. So when I'm in artist mode, I've got ideas and I'm like sketching out the future and I'm, blah, 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 blah. And then I put my operator hat on and I'm like, how will this affect operations? What will this cost? How would this get done? Who would be responsible for what? And then I put my owner hat on and I start to evaluate risk. Should this be done? Right? Should this be done now? Is this truly the priority? Right? What are the downsides? Right? What are the upsides? Are the upsides worth the downsides? How would we minimize downsides and mitigate risk? Right? Actually giving yourself the space to actually put those different hats on and think critically about an issue or an idea is so incredibly valuable. And I think it's the same way, right? With even what we talked about today, weaponizing your vision. it's not just all artist mode. Where I think a lot of people think that, right? Where it's all just kind of like, whoop-de-doo, here's our vision, and wow, it's going to be so awesome, and positioning and marketing and whatever. But no, a lot of it ties into business strategy, like really thinking through, okay, is this actually the right thing to do? What are the risks? What are the upsides? What are the downsides? What are the impacts and effects of this decision, right? And so that's just been so helpful for me, man. I don't know if that directly corresponded to what you were saying, but there it is.
Even the risk of inaction, because, I got a PPP loan.
Yep.
Which gives us I got some wiggle room. So if somebody gave me all this money, what do I do to pivot? Because I can pivot, right? And if I don't, in a few months, I can't. It'll be impossible.
Yep.
Right now I could hire and train and step it up and go to a whole new level.
Yep.
Or I can just sit in indecision and do nothing, and then it's been decided for me and I'm back to where I was before. And the only way out of that hole is to work 90 hours a week, do all the jobs until you can afford to hire somebody,
Right. Rick, just to point you to something real quick. This was the other thing I was going to say. We're going to help you with all of this on the Unleashed CEO side, which I know you're transitioning with, but just to give you the right mindset going into that.
Oh yeah.
It's like, as an owner, you are always going to have a unique ability as a generalist to, at a certain level of scale, juggle different balls and put on different hats and bounce between. As you scale, your ability to do that becomes reduced, but it's not wise to expect that of your team, especially at scale. And you're on the right thought where it's like, I need to be hiring typically specialists, right? Who can do this better than me. And actually, rather than the expectation being they do a lot of things okay, kind of like you can do, the goal is for them to do one role really freaking well and exceed expectations. And once you start to position people that way in your company, you actually gain the ability to become more hands-off. The problem is a lot of times when you have a convoluted, complex structure where people are sitting in multiple seats and they're not totally clear and there aren't good systems and you don't even have the right person in the right seat, that's when owners become micromanagers. Because the only person who can kind of keep everything spinning is if they're in the middle of it, sort of making the judgment calls and spinning the plates. And so you're on the right train of thought, my friend, and we'll help you continue to.
No, that totally helps me.
Yeah.
Because I've made decisions based on what I think clients' perspective is versus what would give them better services. And to take that a step further, how do I hire the right person so they could actually do it better than me because they have the time to do it?
Yep.
Right. Rather than me, jumping all around and doing an okay job, like they can do an excellent job because I'll show them how to do it and they'll have time to do it.
Yep.
So that kind of gives me, it's a powerful statement because that is just the right thing to do. So
true. Last thought for you: as you grow, your team comes first, your clients come second. And that's been a really interesting shift for me, is to start to, not to the exclusion of don't be dumb. Don't, change all your products and services so much that your clients are like, screw you and, whatever. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying my first filter as far as impact nowadays is not what's best for my clients. It's actually what actually makes sense structurally for our organization and for our team.
Yeah.
Because if our team is optimized, they will serve the heck out of our clients, right?
Yeah.
But if we're always just catering to the client's desires, we will not be optimized as a team, which means we won't actually serve them as well as we can.
And then you'll lose your A play. Cool, man. Thanks.
No, you're welcome, man. God, that's a helpful discussion. Mark, anything to chime in from your seat over there? And we got all the Bay Area people here today. Any questions that came to mind or areas of unclarity for you want to chat about before we wrap?
No. Actually, I'm working through some clarity on a couple of expansion ideas right now. And I think last week I came up with what I think is going to be a good interim solution. And it's something that you and I talked about in our annual planning session about trying to expand to 2 markets at one time, and you were kind of cautioning me, don't create a life where your wife hates you and you're doing too many things. So we are working through a workaround that will get that on board, and without me having to actually get a 3rd location right now. So yeah, it's good. But that was something that, if you'd asked me this question 2 weeks ago, I would say that was an area of uncertainty, because I was concerned that if I can't move into this new market for another year or so, and this space is moving quickly, then yeah, I'm just later to enter the market. It takes time to get penetration in the market, and there are competitors out there who will be pursuing the target customers that I want. And so I was challenged to think about, how do I, make the northern expansion and expand south of us at the same time. And you were right, like it would be pretty tough to open 2 locations in the same year, probably unwise.
Yeah.
But we did find a workaround. So
good.
So yeah, so thank you for that.
That's excellent, man. Yeah. No, you're so welcome. And that's the thing, man, is it's like, when we know what looks healthy and smart, right? Healthy and smart. It's amazing how like solutions can come to us that actually meet both criteria. Whereas if we're just doing what makes business sense, but we're not evaluating health, right? Yeah. Will this be healthy for our team? Oftentimes we pigeonhole ourselves into things, into strategies and execution levels that actually were unnecessary and can actually be detrimental for the long term.
Okay, guys,
right?
I want you to read through your notes.
Yep.
Christopher.
There they are. I love that, kiddos. So anyways, guys, I think this, Mark, that's really cool to hear, man. And I'm so glad that clarity came to you, and probably came to you out of some good thinking time. So well done taking it.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Yeah, man. So good. So good. All right. I don't know. I actually can't view any of the comments on Facebook, but it doesn't look like anybody's commented from my perspective. If they have, I'll be happy to come back and answer those after the fact. But otherwise, go have a great Monday, Unleash CEO fam. We'll be in touch soon. Love you guys. Reach out if there's anything you need. Thanks for jumping on, gents. Rick, Mark, everybody else. Have a great day.